recording. So let's. Boker Tov, we're in Parashat Beshalach, and as we started last week, this Syria, we started with the moral interpretation in understanding the centrality of the center in the contemplation of the Maharal. And as we said, the Maharal holds that the Maharal holds that all the world is based on centers. Everything that the Kadosh Baruch Hu created is based on center, and therefore the Maharal sees not only the stage of Am Yisrael as a center of reality, as the main thing in reality, etc., but the Yetziat Mitzrayim time, the timing in which Kadosh Baruch Hu chose to take Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim was in a well-balanced time. Therefore, the Maharal says that it must be during either the spring, Nisan, or the autumn, Tishrei. Maharal doesn't say here why should it be just in Nisan and not Tishrei, but the Maharal says that it mustn't be in Chodesh Tammuz and Av, where the heat is very, the heat is big, it belongs to Umot HaOlam, and therefore the Maharal says that each Ummah, not each Ummah, Am Yisrael versus all Umot HaOlam, Am Yisrael belongs to the average, to the Memutza, to the well-balanced, and Umot HaOlam belong to the extreme. I think that the Maharal goes in further with this idea without saying it, without relating it to the spring in different places, and he says that Am Yisrael balances everything, meaning to say that Am Yisrael has the average, the best average of everything in reality. You know that some of the nations, they have, let's say, now the feminism is very strong. 100 years ago, it was chauvinism. So, and it's not balanced. Now we have the rights of homosexuals. Now it's very, very strong in the world. And like 50 years ago, nobody cared. So Am Yisrael is well balanced in this. And therefore, Am Yisrael belongs to the well-balanced time between day and light. Whereas Umot HaOlam belong to the big light of Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, and therefore the Maharal showed that was a bad period of time. And the Maharal, we said, the Maharal says the same thing with Kislev and Tevet, because that's the opposite of Tammuz and Av. Exactly half a year later, exactly the darkest days of the year. And therefore, it was such a big miracle in Hanukkah that Am Yisrael had success in the war with the Greeks, because they shouldn't had won it since it's a bad time. And in Asara B'Tevet, that's really a part of reality that it's a bad day, that things happened regarding the Churban, and therefore we have a problem. So we understand Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, we understand Tisha B'Av, and we understand Asara B'Tevet. So three Moadim, 3 bad days of the Churban, are all related to extreme time. You have Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av in an extreme time of the kites, of the summer, and Asara B'Tevet in an extreme time in the winter. By the way, I think I said it last week. The Maharal says that it's Asara B'Tevet, and even Asara B'Av, as we know from the Gemara, Tisha B'Av, nothing really happened. It just was the matches of the Babylonians that they lit the Mikdash at the end of the Tisha B'Av, and it was burning all over the 10th. And the Maharal said that the 10th is a shlemut, is a completeness of bad, as we have completeness of 10 commandments, or 10 Asara Ma'amarot, or whatever minyan that we have. So the same thing happens with bad things, and therefore the Yud, the 10th of the Chodesh, is a completion of the days, and there was. That's why it was a problem with Yud B'Av and Yud B'Tevet. So the only date in which the Maharal had the problem is Gimel B'Tishrei, okay? Because as we know, there is a pasuk. There is a pasuk that we know. Good morning. We have another guest. Good morning, Mrs. Blendis. Okay, so good morning. So we have another day. We know that there is a machloket in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon, because Zcharia says, so כה אמר השם, צום הרביעי וצום החמישי וצום השביעי וצום העשירי יהיו לבית ישראל, לבית יהודה לששון ולשמחה. Nowadays you have 4 bad events in the 4th month, the 5th month, the 7th month, and the 10th month, meaning to say Tammuz, Av, Tishrei, and Tevet. But Be'ezrat Hashem, in the future, it will all be good. So there is a machloket what happened. We know what happened in Tammuz. We know what happened in the Av. We know what happened in the Tishrei, which is Tzom Gedalia. There is a machloket about Tevet, whether it's Asara B'Tevet, the beginning of everything, or the day in which Yechezkel, who stayed in the diaspora in Babylon, V'ani B'toch HaGola, he didn't know. There wasn't CNN, there wasn't WhatsApp. He didn't know on time that Beit HaMidrash was distracted, and it took almost half a year to inform him that it had been distracted, and that's why maybe Hey B'Tevet, Hey, not Yud, Hey B'Tevet is a bad day as well. The Yom Shmua. You remember that when after the Holocaust, a lot of people heard that their parents, mothers, etc., died like 2 years ago in Auschwitz. They found the sources that their relatives died, and by halacha, in this day you just sit 1 day of Shiva. It's called Yom Shmua, not 7 days. So the same thing happened with Yechezkel. He heard about the destruction of Beit HaMikdash after a while, and therefore he was sitting 1 day. Okay, so that's a machloket whether it's the 10th of Tevet or the 5th of Tevet, Hey B'Tevet. But what about the Shvi? The Maharal has a line of 4 Moadim, 4 bad Moadim, the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, the 10th, Tammuz, Av, Tishrei, Tevet. So 3 of them we understand, Tammuz, Av, and Tevet. But what happened in Tzom Gedalia? Tzom Gedalia, it's a contradiction to what the Maharal says, because Tzom Gedalia is a gimel of Tishrei, and Gedalia was murdered, actually, as we know from the Tanakh. He was murdered in Rosh Hashanah, but because we cannot fast in Rosh Hashanah, so we postpone it to the gimel. So how is it possible? Because we say that the bad days of the Churban are just days in which the timing is not well balanced, but we said that Tishrei is well balanced, and Am Yisrael could have gone out of Mitzrayim. So how is it possible that at the same day there was something of the Churban, like Tzom Gedalia? So that's a real problem. But Maharal answers that Tzom Gedalia doesn't belong to the Churban. Tzom Gedalia belongs to the Tzaddikim, because there are 2 things. There is one that HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroys Beit HaMikdash by Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, by finishing it in Tisha B'Av, by Asara B'Tevet, making the siege on Yerushalayim, that it's the start of the destruction. But on the other hand, there is another issue, which is the death of tzaddikim, and it's not related. Nachon, Gedalia was at the end of the Churban. After Tisha B'Av, there were many, they were exiled out of Eretz Israel, and only were left in Eretz Israel under the supervision of Gedalia. He was murdered, and it made a big crisis to the settlement in Eretz Israel. That's true, but it's not a part of the process of the Churban. It's a time of Mot Tzadikim, and we know the Gemara says that Kashe Yom שנהרג בו גדליה בן אחיקם, אוקיי? כיום שנחרב בו בית המקדש, something like this. That it's difficult, the same day that Gedalia was murdered, like the day of חורבן בית המקדש, ללמדך ששקולה מיתתן של צדיקים כשרפת בית אלוקינו. It's equal, you equalize, the Gemara equalizes the death of tzaddikim like the burnt of Beit HaMikdash, meaning to say that it's two different processes, and therefore the Maral says that it's really relevant and it fits that Gedalia died on Tishrei, because Tishrei is well balanced and it belongs to Am Yisrael, it belongs to good things, to tshuva, to improving the world, and therefore he understands that the mitat tzaddikim is not for us it's a punishment, but for him, for the tzaddik, it's a part of upgrading himself from this world to another one. Therefore, the Maharal says, I just finished the line that we have 3 moadim of bad things in the not balanced time: 4th, 5th, and 10th, Tevet, Tammuz, and Av, and during the balanced time, we have good things, and one of them might be mitat tzadikim, because for them it's good. Now we can understand why we see, I think I mentioned it, but I'll say another word about it, why we see in the Gemara, we see a comparison between Chodesh Nisan and Chodesh Tishrei. Yes, there are 2 shitot, whether the world was created in Nisan or Tishrei. In Gemara Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Aleph, we feel every year by saying Hayom Harat Olam in the Tefillah of Rosh Hashanah that it was created on Rosh Hashanah, but we know that the Lahaloche, it's not like that. Lahaloche, we hold like Rabbi Yoshua that the world was created in Nisan. If you might ask me, why should it be a halacha? It's just a matter of history, of a fact. So what halacha should be bothered in this issue? So the answer is that there is one halacha related to it. You remember that every 28 years, we have Birkat HaChama. You remember it like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, there was a Birkat HaChama, and a lot of minyanim were on Aratzofim. It was a big issue to say one time, what is Birkat HaChama? Birkat HaChama is on Wednesday. It's the same time that 1,000 years ago, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Chama, because usually when we have Rosh Hashanah, let's say that this year it will be, let's say, Tuesday. So Rosh Hashanah is Aleph B'Tishrei, according to our calendar. It's the day in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, but we don't know whether HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, that his Aleph B'Tishrei was Tuesday, okay? This year is Tuesday, next year is Thursday. It cannot be not Sunday and not Wednesday and not Friday. But each year, we don't know which day in the week HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. But once in Birkat HaChama, we know that it's not only the day before Rosh Hashanah, but it's the 4th day, the same Yom Revi of Briat HaOlam on the day in the week. It's the same place. The Chama comes to the same certain place, certain location that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it 1,000 years ago. Therefore, we have to know whether it was before Nisan or before Tishrei, and L'Halacha we're asking that it was before Nisan. So the Tosfot, if the Rosh Hashanah asks the big question, so how can we fast? How can we feel? How can we say? How can we fast in Yom Kippur? It's not the truth. Yom Kippur is not a question, because Yom Kippur might be in Tishrei, even though it's not related to the creation of the world. But Rosh Hashanah, which is related to the creation of the world, how can we say Hayom Harat Olam, where it was founded in Nisan? So that's what says a very interesting thing, that it was created by Machshove in Chodesh Tishrei, and it was created in practically in Maaseh in Chodesh Nisan. So we have the same prinot, and therefore we have to understand that everything that we celebrate in Rosh Hashanah is not really the creation of the world, is a creation of the thought to create the world. Okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had this blink as a first thought to start creating the world. That's the beginning of the thought. כן, הקדוש ברוך הוא רצה לברוא את העולם במידת הדין, אלא שהוא ראה that it doesn't hold, it doesn't go, the עולם, the world cannot live with מידת הדין, therefore הקדוש ברוך הוא combined מידת הרחמים. That makes the difference between Tishrei, which is Midat Hadin, therefore we have Yom Hadin, and therefore we have Midat HaRachamim, the spring in which Am Yisrael went out of Mitzrayim. Okay, till now, I just finished Shulaim, emergence from last week. Now I want to use another part of the Maharal, but last week I read Maharal in Netzach Yisrael Perek Chet, and now I want to go to Perek Aleph, which is about the Galut and Geula. The Maharal says, I want to show you that the Maharal has the same idea that he used in Perek Chet, even in Perek Aleph. So the Maharal said, כאשר הדבר הטוב נדע מהפכו ידיעה אמיתית. וכן כל הדברים נקנה ידיעה בהם מן ההפך. So you know a thing by looking at its opposite. Sometimes you cannot define a thing, you can define it by its negative. כי מן מראה השחור יכול לדעת מראה הלבן שהוא הפכו. From looking at the black, then you know what white is, right? וכן כל ההפכים, מן האחד נקנה הידיעה בהפך שלו. By looking at one, you can see its opposite. There is a famous mishpat sentence in Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah is a Kabbalic book related to Avraham Avinu. In the Haggadah, we think that Avraham Avinu created it. And in Sefer Yetzirah, it says, Hatov magdir et hara, and hara magdir et hatov. Meaning to say, the good defines the bad defines the good. So in במילים פשוטות, sometimes you don't know how to define yourself. You look at the evilness, and then you know I'm good. I'm not like this. You look at the good, at good people, and you say I'm not there, so I'm evil, I'm bad. Okay, so sometimes you need to know things by looking at the opposite. And then he goes to another thing that it's interesting to explain. בשביל זה אמרו בערבי פסחים, the Gemara said in the Mishnah, בהגדה של פסח, we have מתחיל בגנות ומסיים בשבח. So we start with the agony, with the disgrace of Am Yisrael, and we finish with their praise. So what is the disgrace? In Machloket Rav Shmuel, whether it's a physical disgrace, Avadim היינו לפרעה במצרים, we're slaves, or the spiritual disgrace, that מתחילה עובדי עבודה זרה היו אבותינו. And the same Machloket is about the Shvach, ומסיים בשבח. Which Shvach is it? According to one Shita is a physical one, that ויוציאנו הקדוש ברוך הוא ממצרים, now we're no longer slaves, and according to the other shita, it's a spiritual one that we're no longer of the Avodah Zarah, but kirvanu hamakom leavodato. So the Maharal asks, why do we need to start with the bad things? Yes, when you have a birthday, you don't celebrate the bad days that you had. You just celebrate what you have today. When you have an anniversary, you celebrate what you have today. You don't celebrate the bad days. Why do you mention the bad days in order to know the good of today? So the Maharal explains the same thing. ולמה מתחיל בגנות? רק מפני שאין לשבח הכרה אמיתית, רק מן ההפך. And we know a lot of people that they said that after we were sick, so therefore I get up every day in the morning and thank Hashem for what I have, because we don't thank Hashem for the neshima, for all the organs that work, But chas v'shalom, when something hurts and koev, and then we know how, when it doesn't function well, how bad it is, therefore we come back and say, okay, thank you Hashem for what you have. ולכן, אין לפרש עניין הגאולה האחרונה, אם לא שנבאר עניין הגלות והחורבן. So the Maharal explicitly says, I want to explain you the last גאולה of our days or in the future, whatever, אם לא שנבאר עניין הגלות והחורבן. So just by looking at the חורבן, at the destruction, at the exile, שבזה יוודע הטוב והתשועה שאנו מקווים. Okay? So just by saying that if I look at the extreme bad, I know the extreme good. So if I look at the exile, I know what the גאולה is. אוקיי, אני מדלג קצת כשנספיק, ועוד, שיש לבאר עניין הגלות תחילה, כי הגלות בעצמו הוא ראיה והוכחה ברורה על הגאולה. Now I want to extrapolate what he's saying. וזה, כי אין ספק, there is no doubt, כי הגלות הוא שינוי ויציאה מן הסדר. שהשם יתברך סידר כל אומה במקומה הראוי לה, וסידר את ישראל במקום הראוי להם, שהוא ארץ ישראל. והגלות מן מקומה הוא שינוי ויציאה לגמרי. So the same thing that we explained the last week, the Maharal uses the same thing here. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu set all the nations, each one in its place, there is an order to reality. And you cannot say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just put, nations on the board, and he says, now you play, you make war, you conquer, etc. No, because everything has his seder. That's an axiom that the Maharal takes for granted, that everything is centralized. And therefore, as we saw, that Am Yisrael has his own time, his own balanced time. Am Yisrael, like United States or like the Emirates, they have their own place. אין לך אדם שאין לו מקום, ואין לך אדם שאין לו שעה. It doesn't only say that there is no one person that doesn't have his place, that even the most stupid pupil in the class, even one time in the year will answer you a good answer. No, the Maharal understands that basically there is an order, the metziut. Everything is set up, and therefore, as Eretz Yisrael to Am Yisrael is not a chidush. It's not that Am Yisrael is a lot of tribes wandering in the desert, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives them a gift and put them in Eretz Yisrael. No, Eretz Yisrael from the beginning is our place, because that's where we were created. As the French people are created in France, and therefore they have relation with France. They like France. They like the French mentality, the French food, the French place. Even somebody has a kesher with his homeland just because he likes it. Therefore, Am Yisrael must stay in Eretz Yisrael. בכל הדברים, כאשר הם יוצאים מהמקום הטבעי והם חוץ למקומם, אין להם עמידה במקום הבלתי להם, רק הם חוזרים למקומם הטבעי. Okay? So as I said last week, in chemistry and physics, there is the entropy rule, meaning to say that if you come to a house and you see that it's set, it's מסודר, somebody used energy in order to set it, to לסדר את זה. Whereas the basic position of reality is that there is no order, and it's all מבולגן, it's all messy. But the Maharal says the opposite. From a metaphysical point of view, everything is tidy. And therefore, if you see Am Yisrael standing 2,000 years in the diaspora, you can choose one of two things. either to say that it's natural because it's too long. We haven't seen a nation 2,000 years ago staying out of its place and coming back. And so, okay, the Galut that's a place where Am Israel should stay, and you can say like the Christians, if it's a punishment to Am Israel, Chas v'Shalom, and therefore they deserve it. You can say like the Jews that it's not a punishment, but we belong to the diaspora. Eretz Israel is an old issue. But therefore, you must say that the diaspora, the Galut, is natural to Am Israel. Okay, and then it's impossible because there is no nation that's standing for a long time out of its basic place. אין לך אדם שאין לו מקום. משל זה, אם אתה מכריח את חלק האש שיהיה עומד בארץ, שמקומו הטבעי הוא למעלה, ואתה מכריח אותו למקום הטבעי להיות עומד למטה. Okay, let's say that I'll say it in you see a person standing with his legs on the floor, on the ceiling, and with his head on the floor. You understand that it's unnatural, so you must say that you stand in the space, or you know that something happened here, but it's unnatural. Okay, you understand that it's not the place that he stands. Therefore, if you see Am Yisrael standing in the diaspora, even if it's long, and you take for granted, like the Maharal, that there is order to everything, so Eretz Yisrael is our order, and therefore it makes the Galut unnatural. וכן ישראל בעצמה, אם היו עומדים בגלות לעולם, שאין זה מקומם הראוי להם, כי מקומם הראוי להם לפי סדר המציאות להיותם בארץ ישראל ברשות עצמה, ולא ברשות אחר. ואם היו נשארים בגלותם לעולם העסקי, היה הדבר הזה, שהוא עמידה חוץ למקומם, שהוא בלתי טבעי, נעשה טבעי. So, philosophically, if you say that they stand in the diaspora and that's their nature, so you must, the nature is to live in the diaspora, but it's a stira, it's a contradiction, because there is no nation that stands out of its land. So decide where we belong. Let's say we belong to Germany, to France, to United States. Decide that we belong there, but nobody decides that we belong there. You say, okay, we belong everywhere. Nothing like this in the world. So you might go back to the second conclusion, that it's unnatural to us, okay? And that's why דבר זה לא ייתכן. וכמו זה, הפיזור, scattering around, אינו דבר טבעי. כמו שחוזר כל דבר ודבר אל מקומו, everything goes back to its place, כך חוזרים החלקים המפוזרים בהיותם כלל אחד. ודבר זה מבואר לכל אדם אשר הוא בן דעת, כי כל החלקים עניין אחד להם. Once you think that the Yemenites, Yehudim in Yemen, or the Americans Jews, or the whatever, the Algerian Jews, they all belong to the same nation, and we feel that we belong to the same nation. So we have Eretz Israel all the time that uniting us. Okay, that's the Maharal takes for granted why Eretz Israel is so basic to Am Israel, and is not just a prize that, as I said, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us, but the basic is just Am Yisrael, the basic is maybe the Torah that will be given in Parashat Yitro. No, the Maharal says that Eretz Yisrael, in our cortex, in our back of the mind, it gives us all the time it's like the magnet that unites us all and brings us to the seder, to the order. Again, I go back to the musag of the seder, of the order. Okay, we have in the Mishnah of the Maharal the order. There is an order to everything. ומזה נראה כי הפיזור להם בפרט אינו טבעי כלל. ואי אפשר לומר, so you might say, what are you talking about? דבר זהו בשביל חטא ועוון. Okay, so הקדוש ברוך הוא punished us a lot. So 2,000 years he punished us. No, I'm not talking about the reason. For sure it's because of a punishment. סוף, but philosophically, דבר זה when you look on the macro, you look you make zoom out, and you look on עם ישראל, הפיזור לישראל הוא בלתי טבעי. ויהיה בלתי טבעי, נעשה טבעי, אם היה זה לעולם. So the conclusion must be that even if it takes so long, okay, so it must be that we have a place to go back into it. Okay, I'll skip what he says here. Ramzu Chachamim.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, sure.
But the experience of us in Bavel, where basically you had Eretz Yisrael and you had Bavel, two poles of the Jews, and the Chazal were saying that it's better to be in Bavel.
Yeah, the Maral doesn't speak about what's good or what's bad. In meaning, I mean, let's say that nowadays some Jewry prefer to live in the diaspora and they think that they learn better there. Might be that it's better, okay? Maral doesn't speak in terms of good and bad. It uses just infinite terms, okay? From the zoom out, Am Yisrael at the end of the day has his place just in Eretz Yisrael, okay? זה לא משנה. It might be that that Chazal during the time of the diaspora in Bavel thought that it's better and the learning there is better and not to make an aliyah, and Ezra was very angry, you know, that there are midrashim that Ezra tried, you know, that there is a famous midrash, Rokeach brings it, one of the Rishonim, I think I mentioned it once, that he said that Ezra wanted to gather all the Yehudim to make an aliyah to immigrate to Eretz Yisrael in Beit Sheni, and some of the Jews that were expelled in Beit Rishon were thrown to Worms in Germany. There is a congregation in Germany in Worms, not only from Beit Sheni, from Beit Rishon, okay? And Ezra sent them a letter, I don't know, and he asked them, please come to Eretz Yisrael. So they answer him, we don't want to come to Eretz Yisrael. We have better stayed in Worms, in the diaspora in Germany. And the Rokeach says that Ezra cursed them, that all the bad things would start from Germany. Okay? So that's a famous Rokeach. And you know that the Crusaders started from Germany and the Holocaust started from Germany, etc. But I'm not talking about good or bad or what's. It might be that in a certain of time, Rabbanim would decide that it's better to us to stay in the diaspora. I'm not talking about Zionism or not. I mean, that's another issue. But the Maral talks from a metaphysical point of view. And he says that it must be that Eretz Yisrael is the only place for us. Okay? So you might live in the diaspora, but know that it's not your place, not your real place. You're in the diaspora. Meaning to say that you might succeed much more there, but it's not the right place. That's it. Okay. So רמזו חכמים דבר זה בראשית רבה. So look how the Maharal takes his ideas and put them in a midrash that is very easy to understand without the Maharal. ויאמר השם אל אברהם, ידוע תדע כי גר יהיה זרעך בארץ לא להם. הקדוש ברוך הוא promises אברהם in ברית אלמנטריים about יציאת מצרים, okay? ידוע תדע. הקדוש ברוך הוא says no in two versions. ידוע שאני מפזרן, תדע שאני מקבצן. ידוע שאני ממשכנם, תדע שאני פורקן. ידוע שאני משעבדם, תדע שאני גואלם. So in three versions, the Midrash says the same thing. ידוע, one ידוע is תדע. No, that I enslave them. I make them slaves. I gather them. No, אני מפזר אותם, okay? And תדע, I'll gather them, I'll make them free. Okay? So why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu have to say 3 times that ידוע תדע, ולא הוצרכו במדרש אלו כל הדברים שהם עניין אחד? די היה לו לומר, ידוע שאני משעבדם, תדע שאני גואלם. So the Maharal understands that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hears say, you must look well at the diaspora, at the galut, at the shi'abud of Mitzrayim, in order to understand Eretz Yisrael. Because if you just think that it's a mikre, that you were in Mitzrayim, so you won't understand Eretz Israel. Just by looking at the opposite, it's a black, it's a bad things of Mitzrayim. Therefore, you understand what your DNA, real DNA is, that it's Eretz Israel. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses all the time both of them together, okay? וכן ידוע שאני ממשכנם. I put them as a mortgage. ונתתי אותם ברשות אחרים, okay? I enslaved them to others. ואין ראוי לפי סדר המציאות שיהיו ישראל עומדים ברשות אחר. כי מה? שישראל הם בארץ אחרת, יצאו מרשותם ועומדים ברשות אחר. It's unnatural that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts a nation under another nation. It can be for 10 years, for 100 years, for 1,000 years, but it's not natural. Okay, and therefore, if you look at the abnormality of the Golos, so therefore you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes us. And for finish, because we have to finish, don't have much time. We'll do this next week, Bezrat Hashem, and then we'll go to something of Torah for Parshat Yitro. But I want to say what I said in the Shiur of the Holocaust. It's a famous thing that Rav Amital used to say. He said that Rav Amital came from Hungary, and he was a kid in Hungary during the Holocaust. And he said that if you looked at the abnormality, that in 1944, the Nazis started to lose in the East, in Stalingrad, they lost, and they lost a lot of soldiers, a lot of trains, and everything, all the koach, all the power went to exterminate Am Yisrael. All the trains were from Budapest to Auschwitz, and it worked well, and Eichmann made all the effort that it would work. And it such an abnormality, because you cannot wait wait till you win again Russia, or you win Romania, you win Hungary, and then you exterminate Am Yisrael. The abnormality shows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. And that's what the Maharal wants to say here. There are some things that are so abnormal, and by looking at the abnormal, but looking at the bad, by looking at the galut, you can understand that it's so abnormal that something unites you all. So I took it in the Holocaust to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists even during the bad time. Maharal wants to say that something a little bit different, that if you look at the bad time, you understand that there is something uniting you back to the good time, that unites you back to Eretz Israel, and therefore that's its Baila. There is one thing that we didn't have time now with the Gala and Gaal. It's very nice. We'll do it Bezrat Hashem next week. And then, therefore, as I said, I'll send you a different Daf Mekorot about the Torah and something for next week. We have to stop because less than 1 minute Zoom is cut. Shavua Tov, Toda Rabba. Shavua Tov.
Very good.